Grace! Grace! Where are you?
I'm stuck!
Hold on!
What's the matter?
I'm stuck. You know, this tunnel is too narrow. I know it seemed like a good idea doing the podcast from a cave because it's the descent, but we were doing this episode because I was really afraid of caving. Now, last week we didn't do an episode from the site of a nuclear war just because you were afraid of nuclear bombs, did we?
No. Are you stuck? Are you still stuck?
Yeah.
Okay. I can see daylight up ahead. I'm gonna go for help. You stay here. I will come back in a minute. Okay.
Don't.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Okay.
Don't leave.
Listen, the thing is, breathe as fast as you can. Yeah. Keep that up, and I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back.
What is that?
Now just give me a smile.
Juno, are you sure we're going the right way?
I've never been lost in my life.
There's only one way out of this chamber, and that's down the pipe. Sarah thinks she saw someone back
So
there.
what?
I don't think I saw someone. I saw someone.
No, you heard something and you saw what you wanted to see. It's the dark. It plays tricks on people. Ah, please! Is there anybody there?
Hello, welcome to episode 95 of How to Survive. Not often we can get the titles to rhyme, is it?
No.
How are you?
Feeling alive. I'm glad we've arrived at the descent.
Yes. The Descent from 2015.
5.
Oh, The Descent from 2005
Yeah.
is this week's movie. I don't think we can keep the rhyming system up throughout the rest of this
It would get
45 minutes to an
It
hour.
would certainly be contrived.
Yeah. It would. And I'm Joe, joined as ever by Chris. Hello.
Hello.
Had a good week?
Yeah, it's been good. I haven't been trapped in any caves.
No, that's always a bonus.
Yes.
Yeah. This week's movie is The Descent, about a group of women who go into a cave, like caving, like exploring a cave. Yeah, that sounds like a fun idea. Said nobody ever.
Yeah.
Some people do, though. I don't understand it. We'll come to that later on. So the reason we're doing The Descent, Chris, is because it's Fears and Phobias season on How to Survive.
Yeah.
And your fear and phobia is what?
Well,
strong adventurous women who like to go in caves?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Groups of women who laugh a lot.
Yeah.
Because I worry that they might be laughing at me.
Yeah. Women who have severely defined character traits.
Yes. And muscles.
Yeah.
No, I'm sort of. It's difficult to quantify exactly, but it's sort of claustrophobia, being trapped, and a sort of specific memory from my childhood, which I'll tell you about later, which involves sort of tunnels, small spaces, underwater.
Okay.
So look forward to that.
Okay. I can't wait. You've given us...
And it also involves, I should say, blind, pale, horrible cavemen.
Yeah. Yes, Chris, disgusting creatures they are, and but those are a spoiler if you haven't seen The Descent. And if you haven't seen it, then there are more spoilers ahead.
Yeah.
So go and watch it. It's on Netflix, and it's free to watch as long as you have Netflix. I mean, Netflix itself isn't free, but any movie thereafter becomes free, gives you a subscription to Netflix. That's how the Netflix system
no
works.
added cost.
No, exactly it.
And The Descent, we should say, is consistently ranked as one of the best horror movies ever made.
I don't know about that, mate.
Well, I'm just reporting facts.
From whom? What facts?
From lists of
What lists?
Definitely, it is definitely consistently highly rated in lists that rank the top horror movies.
My first horror movie lists.
Well, I mean, it's all relative, obviously. Like, you know, if it's top 10 horror movies of the 2000s, it wouldn't be a surprise to have it feature. If it was top 10 horror movies ever, it would be a surprise.
Yeah.
But like, you know, top 200 horror movies ever, you would expect to see it on there.
Yeah, maybe. What the fuck is this?
Can we just get into the plot recap?
All right. Throwing on.
Yeah. Here's the recap of The Descent.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
3 friends, Sarah, Natalie, and Juno, are white water rafting, watched from the shore by Sarah's husband, Paul, and her daughter, Jessica.
This week's recap is read out by the Speak and Spell.
Is that a bit too much?
This it's just white water rafting.
It's hard to say. Let me have another run at it.
Yeah, okay.
3 friends, Sarah, Natalie, and Juno, are white water rafting, watched from the shore by Sarah's husband, Paul, and her daughter, Jessica. They arrive back on land. Sarah leaves with her family, telling the others that they'll meet back at the hotel, but not before Paul and Juno share a very public, tender moment, which instantly reveals that they're having an affair.
Yeah, to anyone who can read basic human interaction.
Yes. In the car, Paul seems distant with his wife, then accidentally veers into an oncoming van. The van has an unsecured load of pipes which detach and kill Paul and Jessica, their daughter.
A twofer.
Yeah. Sarah survives and a year later travels to America to join Natalie and Juno again on a caving adventure. They're joined by Beth, Sam, Rebecca, and Holly. Who are like Juno's friends from America.
Yeah.
After
all British though.
No, all women are from a different country.
Right, yeah. Sorry, I mean, pan-European though.
Yes, exactly right. After an evening of establishing some basic character differentiation, primarily that Holly is a reckless thrill seeker, and that Sarah is prone to sudden bouts of depression following the trauma of the previous year.
Understandable.
Yes. The group sets off for some safe and planned caving fun the next day. In the car, Juno comments that the cave appears to be boring, and so she leaves the guidebook on the dashboard when she leaves, unbeknownst to the rest of the team. Once they all drop into the first part of the cave, they begin climbing down further into tight tunnels which are increasingly claustrophobic and difficult to navigate. They stop for a light snack, during which time Sarah wanders off, convinced that she saw something moving in the shadows, although she decides it must have just been her imagination.
Did you know that at this point there is actually a crawler?
Yeah, I saw it it's in like a widescreen. What do you call that?
Like establish or like a
wide shot.
Yeah, well, there's the one that everyone sees, which is obvious, which is like a foreground silhouette, and it opens its mouth, and there's like a dribble of blood.
No.
But before that, there's like a shot of her like scanning the ceiling of the cave with her torch.
Right.
And it passes over a certain point, and then back, and as it passes over the first time, there's like if you watch it in slow motion or know what you're looking for, it looks like the silhouette of something crouching. Yeah. And then when it passes back, it's not there anymore.
Okay. Well, the one I saw it's like a really wide angled shot of it's like divided. The screen's got divided down the middle, and on the right hand you've got the team in the foreground. Right. And in the background on the left, you've got like a silhouette of one squatting.
Yeah.
Which
there's a few instances where you see them.
Yeah. But we're told like in like the characters' discussions that if we get in the cave we might have hallucinations. Yeah. So you're led to believe that hallucinations could be possible. So you think, maybe this is just a trick of the light. Anyway, Sarah wanders off, convinced that she saw something moving in the shadows. Maybe she did, but she decides it was just her imagination, or possibly just an effect of being haunted by the memory of her daughter. Yeah. Which seems to be like playing on her mind, causing hallucinations, bad dreams, daydreams, all sorts of things.
Yeah, she in the soundtrack there's sort of children laughing, which obviously isn't real.
Yeah, non-diegetic. Yeah. Juno apologises to Sarah for leaving suddenly the previous year after the accident, but Sarah ignores her. As they move through the next impossibly tight tunnel, Sarah brings up the rear, but she becomes trapped. She begins to panic and hyperventilate. Beth calms her down and helps her slip free. But as she does so, the tunnel begins to collapse. The pair escape, but they lose their rope bag, which is obviously an essential piece of kit when you're in a cave and need to go up. In the next alcove, there appears to be no obvious way forward, and the group begin to bicker. One member suggests that they shouldn't worry too much, since she submitted a travel plan to the Mountain Rescue Police. But Juno is quick to explain that actually, she didn't bring the guidebook. She led them to a different tunnel complex from the planned one. They're in a completely unexplored cave system. They don't know where they are. Nobody else knows where they are. And she did all this because she wants to improve her friendship with Sarah. But it has the counter effect of damaging her friendship with Sarah.
Yes. Yeah. That goes down in the old How to Survive pantheon of trying to do something and achieving literally the opposite result, like trying to prove your innocence by murdering loads of people.
Yes. The rest of the group is upset, but Juno remains confident that she acted with the best intentions. The group pushes on, eventually coming across a large hole. The only way forward involves Sam climbing across and securing a guide rope for the rest of the group to use. By the time she reaches the other side, her hands are beginning to fail, since she's supporting her entire body weight on basically one arm. But she's relieved to see that an iron hook has already been embedded in the rock, and she uses that instead of her safe and tested safety equipment. The group makes it across, except for Juno, who swings free as the ancient iron bolt comes loose. As she slips, Sam's hands are cut open by the rope slipping through her grasp. Hopefully she won't need to do any more climbing, Chris.
Yeah.
Holly decides to push on ahead and declares that she sees daylight. Juno explains that's not daylight, but too little too late. Holly falls down a big hole and breaks her leg quite badly.
I mean, any leg break in a cave is bad anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But bone is poking out.
Yeah, bone through skin.
Compound fracture.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Nice. The rest of the group catches up and begin giving Holly medical attention, except for Sarah, who wanders off and sees in the shadows what she thinks is a man hiding. She tells the others, but they don't believe her. As she's off sulking, someone shows some compassion for her trauma, but Juno admonishes them, saying, in full earshot of everyone, including Sarah, she's not the only one who lost something in that crash, thus confirming beyond any doubt that she was having an affair with Sarah's husband. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone at this point.
No.
They keep moving and soon find a cave painting indicating that the cave complex they're in has two possible entrances. With a renewed confidence, they move deeper into the cave until they're accosted by a humanoid monster which attacks and kills Holly. The group splits up as they realise that they are in a cave filled with animal bones and carcasses. They're then attacked from all sides by groups of the humanoid monsters. Juno fights off several, killing them with a climbing pick, but she is startled by Beth approaching from behind and accidentally kills her. Beth falls to her knees and grasps at Juno's chest in desperation, pulling off her necklace in the process. Sarah runs away and falls down a hole where she's knocked unconscious. In what appears to be a strong case for collective consciousness, the group all work out simultaneously that the humanoids are blind and rely on sound to hunt their prey. So the game is to stay quiet. The rest of the group then goes through a series of contrived fights and escape attempts until they're all killed in violent and cinematic ways by the monsters, who they fail to outsmart or outfight. Sarah wakes up, and as she makes her way through the tunnel, she fights a few monsters, killing them, and eventually finds Beth apparently still alive. Beth explains that Juno is not to be trusted and hands Sarah the necklace that she snatched off earlier. On the necklace is written, is it seize the day, or you only live once, or
It's something like it's
some Instagram quote, which is apparently something that Sarah's husband used to say all the time.
Right.
And therefore indicates even more that there was an affair going on. Only now does it dawn on Sarah that her husband did the dirty with Juno, and when she and Juno, who is the only other survivor, reunited, she strikes Juno with a climbing axe, maiming her and preventing her from climbing to safety.
Yeah, leaves her for dead, basically.
Sarah climbs out of the cave and into daylight. She jumps in one of the cars that was left around and drives swiftly to the main road. When she finally gets there, she is overwhelmed with shock and hysteria and breaks down crying. And that's where the descent ends. Except it's not.
Only if you're in America.
Really? Was that the American ending?
That was the American ending.
Happy ending.
It stopped there. But if you're in America, listener, let's hear Joe reveal to you the true ending of The Descent.
Sarah wakes up in the cave, and she'd basically fallen unconscious again.
Well, she hallucinates that her daughter is in front of her.
She wakes. The whole thing was a dream.
Yeah,
a coma dream.
Yeah.
She wakes up and her daughter is in front of her with a birthday cake, which is like a consistent hallucination that she's had throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And because she's finally basically reunited with her daughter in a mental sense, if not a real one, she's kind of happy to spend her time there in the cave and just die there.
Yeah. Well,
that's
one reading of it, or the other reading is that she's just completely lost her mind and is thinks that she's seeing that and is just unwittingly awaiting death, basically, isn't she?
Right, because she thinks that she's in...
Yeah, she thinks she's just hanging out with her daughter, but actually she's about to get eaten alive.
Right.
Yeah.
Either way...
a bleak ending.
Yes. So, I've heard you say repeatedly that it's in the top movies, and you didn't say that with a scoff in your voice.
The top movies?
Yeah, it's top horrors.
Yeah.
You didn't say that scoffing, so I think you probably agree with that. Do you?
I think it's very good, yeah. I think... it had a £3.5 million budget, which is small change indeed, I think it's fair to say. And it made nearly 20 times that back in box office. And that was at a point in time where the London terrorist attacks had just taken place. So the nation's appetite for a horror movie was slim to none. And I think since then it's had a sort of, reappraisal, become a bit of a cult film since its release. And I think it feels a bit low budget in places, like especially some of the cave sets feel a bit sort of like
when the tunnel collapse happens, it looks like like Takeshi's Castle.
Yeah, and it is like a bit game show, right? Yeah. Like it feels like it's on a soundstage because it is. They decided not to film it in real caves because it would be too dangerous, obviously.
So they built a cave in Pinewood.
Yeah, exactly. It feels a bit televisual in places, but overall, I think it's a pretty good and effective use of its budget. Like it looks as good as films that have 10 times its budget. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the benefits, I guess, to filming a cave movie is you can do it in almost complete darkness.
Yes,
but
exactly.
With that in mind, you have to get clever with lighting.
Yeah.
And it's...
There's a lot of use of coloured lighting and flares and neon and all that sort of thing. So
you can flash between a scene where ostensibly one of the characters who is seen as a bit of a villain is bathed in red while the others are bathed in green.
Yeah, there's a lot of that sort of thing. I think there's a good use of sort of Chekhov's X, basically Chekhov's everything.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got, things like the book, the caving book, the rope bag, the watch, all those sorts of things that are set up in the first act that then pay off, even if they're not like necessarily massive plot points. You get just a little shot or like a little feature of each of these little things, which then later pay off. And I think that helps the script feel really tight.
Yeah,
and
it does.
Everything has a payoff.
Yeah, but equally, if you've seen a horror movie before, you also know that those things are gonna go off.
Yeah, I know, but I think they're, like we've had this discussion before as to whether or not, adeptly utilizing tropes necessarily makes it, a negative thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And I think in some ways, or maybe in a lot of ways, the film's scariest bits are just the first act. Like the caving sequences and being isolated and trapped and all that sort of thing. Yeah. Like I felt genuinely sort of tight-chested at that scene where Sarah is trying to squeeze through the tunnel and starts panicking.
Yeah, because it's like, imagine you were there and it's filmed in such a tight angle. Like it's like right up within her face.
Yeah.
And the other character, I think it's Beth, crawls through the gap and she's like they're both wearing helmet lights, helmet torches. So you get like the perspective of Sarah and it's just like light in your eyes and like you're trapped in a really tight hole. And it's really unpleasant.
It's horrible, isn't it? It's like it communicates that sort of claustrophobia really well.
Yeah. But the problem with it though is that yes, you're right. That does communicate that claustrophobia perfectly. And the things like falling down a hole and breaking your leg in a cave when you're already lost, that is like horror. And just all the situation they find themselves in, you're just thinking, how could this be any worse?
Yeah.
And the answer to that shouldn't be, in my opinion, oh, imagine they were monsters. Because revealing the monsters really, and confirming them as like all definitely there. Because in this movie, there's never any doubt that they are.
Yeah.
Like in the first time, the first few times you see them, you could think, oh, maybe it's hallucination. And that's to the benefit of the film.
Yeah.
Because like they could all be experiencing something slightly different. But as soon as the monsters start attacking, you're kind of asked to believe that there are monsters in this cave.
Right.
And that requires a leap of faith that is more, it takes away from like the real life horror.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think the problem with it is not necessarily just the fact that there are monsters. For me, it's more the tone changes of the film, and it becomes more like a sort of Tomb Raider movie, where especially the character of Juno becomes quite a sort of ass-kicking, superhero sort of vibe. Do you know what I mean? Like it becomes more action-packed and more set-piece orientated, and I think that's to its detriment. Yeah. But I don't know if I agree that just the idea of there being monsters and definitely being monsters there necessarily lessens the movie for me. Like, I think, the trope of monsters underground, like the Hollow Earth sort of thing, is a potent and quite frightening one. And like it plays into the same thing of like, in real life, there are things in the depths of the ocean that we have never seen because, and like, it's the same as there are things in space potentially that we've never seen or may never see that could be horrors to us. And I think that like the idea in theory of there being an unexplored cave system that's sort of hidden away and it happens to have this sort of microcosm
of monsters.
Yeah, like that's all right. And I think they're not like too supernatural either. Like the most supernatural thing about them, I suppose, is that they can climb really well.
Yeah.
But they're not like, they don't have powers, as it were. They're just sort of like evolved to their environment.
Yeah, I feel you.
So yeah, I know what you mean, but I think my issue with it is more that the tone changes and the stakes feel lower somehow.
Yeah, when the scene where Sam has to monkey bar across the gap,
right,
and you genuinely think that she could lose her grip and fall to her death.
Yeah,
that's tense and horrible.
Yeah,
and like that's the one thing you have to do to survive. And like you're kind of railroaded into like a really uncomfortable and difficult thing, where not only your survival but everyone else's survival is like pinned on the strength in your fingers.
Yeah,
that's scarier than there's a monster.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I think that the idea is a fine one, and it's just in the execution where it loses a bit of its effectiveness.
Would you have been happier, for instance, if there had been some ambiguity about whether those monsters were really there?
Possibly, but then I wonder how far you can stretch that. And let's not forget as well that the monsters don't really appear until about an hour into the film, which is quite, that's good. Like generally we're a fan of that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you don't fully see one until about 45, 50 minutes in.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's only a 100-minute movie, so like how much further could you have stretched that ambiguity? I think, but like I think overall, like I said, it's more the execution of it as opposed to just the fact that there are monsters in it. I think you can tell the difference as well. The soundtrack becomes much more hysterical.
Yeah, more trumpety, like
yeah, like
and relying on those like sort of quiet, then a screeching like wind instrument will go.
Yeah. So it's like it loses its subtlety in a filmic and soundtrack way at the same time. The one thing that stays with me though is specifically from the scene where the crawlers, as they're known, first attack. Is and I was even thinking about this recently, and I couldn't remember what film it was, and then I obviously remembered. Holly, who is the girl who breaks her leg, she gets set upon by one or two of the monsters, and one of them rips her throat out. Yeah, and there's a really nasty bit of sound design in that moment, right? Which I'm going to play now. So what it is that when she screams and then gets her throat ripped out, the scream turns into like a sort of bloody gargling noise, and then she like falls down and she's sort of dead by the time she hits the ground. But it's just something so like visceral and nasty about that like level of detail that's, you know, like you wouldn't notice it if her scream just stopped. But to have that like gargling noise,
I mean she's still alive.
Puts you in mind of like her throat filling with blood and her lungs and like it like tearing, like it just adds like a visceral quality to it, which I think is really horrible, and that for some reason like stays with me a lot. Like I you know, that would be for me one of the more disturbing horror deaths that I've seen.
There's things in horror movies sometimes where it does strike. I mean, that didn't bother me when I saw it the first time. But say like when we watched Bone Tomahawk all those months ago, there's a scene in that which haunts me. It just sticks with you, doesn't it? We won't ruin that scene because it's a big part of the film. But go back and listen to that episode or watch the movie.
Episode 20 something.
Yeah, it's on Netflix as well. So so watch that. So Chris, forgetting the map before you go into a cave is one thing, but deliberately leaving the map behind and going into a completely different cave system because you want to have some sort of sense of discovery is tantamount to murder, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the leaving of the map book is essentially a moot point, though, isn't it? Because even if she took it with them, it would have been no good because they're in a different cave system.
Okay, right. Then leading people against their will into
or like without their informed consent, like into a unknown cave system is tantamount to murder. You are right, and it's like they are like I don't know whether we should talk about the fact that they're all women.
In what way? Well, because not want to talk about that
because it's like I just mean like maybe we should bring that up because it's not really a it's non-typical, isn't it? It's atypical.
It's good to see in a horror movie. Yeah. Whereas typically, if you were to do this movie traditionally, you'd have like four or five men in a woman movie.
Right. Yeah. But the thing as well is that they're at no point does it feel contrived or anything that they're of their their abilities. Or their, prowess in climbing, exploring, or whatever. No. It's totally incidental that all of them are women. It's not even like a hen party or anything like that. It's completely incidental, and if anything, that should be the prototype for how movies should handle gender. Right?
Because it could have been men, it could have been women.
Exactly.
It's the same as when we go to Alien. The original, where all the characters are given only their surname. Well, I mean, elementary, but they could be male or female. Right. But they don't do anything in the movie where it's like they have to be a man or they have to be a woman.
Here's a gender role. Yeah, and so it's like, you could have made this film with all men, and you could have made it with all women, as they did, and it doesn't matter who they are. And in many ways, that is the ideal to strive for.
Yeah, I agree. It's progressive.
Yeah.
And admirable for that reason.
Yeah.
So, Chris, a sequel was made to The Descent.
Yeah.
The Descent Part 2.
Yes.
Have you seen it?
I have. I don't know whether or not I've seen it all the way through. It's one of those that you catch bits of, like film 4, 11:30 at night, sort of. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah. In my opinion, it is the epitome of a sequelitis movie.
Right. So is this spoilers for the Descent Part 2?
Skip forward 2 minutes and we should have been in safe territory away from the Descent Part 2. So I'm not going to recap the whole plot, but I'll tell you the following, right?
Right.
Do you know how they got Sarah able to go back into the story?
She's still in the cave, is that right?
No,
or
she,
does
she gets out of the
escape
cave and has amnesia.
Right.
Right.
Okay. And she doesn't remember what happened to the rest of her group. Therefore,
Exactly.
they need to go in and
Save them. Yeah.
right.
That's a horror sequel.
Yeah.
All over it.
Mm-hmm.
There are more crawlers,
Yeah. Of
and
course there are.
there's a crawler leader
Yeah.
who is bigger than the other crawlers.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Completely ignores the themes that made the original compelling. So, the one theme that was between Juno and Sarah was obviously like the situation that has forgiven, and they're friends again, and Juno dies in Sarah's arms.
So Juno's the one that's still alive in the cave.
Yeah, she's
Right.
She's still in there killing. She's really good at killing. It's only 2 days have passed since
Yeah.
the,
I misremembered who was still in the cave, but I remembered that a character was.
Yeah, it's Juno. And like the various bodies and stuff are still there.
Yeah, another thing that I remember quite distinctly is that they have to use Sam's body to cross a crevasse or whatever that
exactly.
she's hanging over, which is pretty unpleasant.
Yeah, and it doesn't work, and they fall to their death.
Yeah, that's right.
But the best part, the thing that rings completely of this is a horror movie sequel,
Right.
is the fact that they are sent back down into the caves via a mine shaft operated by the old and mysterious Ed Oswald, who's just a creepy old man.
Yeah, and then the ending?
He turns out to be feeding the
Correct.
Yeah. Creating the crawlers.
Yeah, I think that's 2 minutes. So
Yeah, safe.
yeah,
2 minutes of great stuff,
yeah,
and we can't talk about it anymore.
yeah.
So, Chris, what do we know about the crawlers who appear to... I mean, we know... Well, okay, there's two things at play here.
Mm-hmm.
What do we know about caving? It's
Right.
dangerous.
Okay.
And what do we know about the crawlers?
Well, to start with the crawlers, Neil Marshall says that the crawlers are actually sort of cavemen that never left the caves, essentially. So that's how they've evolved to not have sight, have super hearing, be pale.
Yeah. In what, like 10,000 years?
Yeah. There's
that
like
level
literally prehistoric cavemen,
Right.
which obviously isn't like cavemen didn't come from caves.
No,
But
they yeah.
In theory, Neil Marshall's film posits that some cavemen left their shallow cave homes and went out into the world, and the others went deeper underground. And then over tens of thousands of years, from Neanderthal man, a subspecies evolved into the crawlers. They're completely blind, as we said. They hunt by hearing. They're cannibalistic, or, essentially they eat humans, raw meat, whatever. They're expert climbers.
Yep.
And we do see some sort of mother and child crawlers as well. Infant crawlers.
Baby crawlers.
Which is pretty grim.
Is it grim? They're species that are breeding?
Yeah, but I mean, it's just, lends a humanity to them that makes it more unpleasant, I think. What were your thoughts on the sort of slurry pool of blood
Yeah.
in the cave?
So is that just like blood that's collected from all the people they've killed?
I guess so. Like just effluence or whatever. Yeah.
Bit weird, isn't it?
Pretty nasty.
Yeah.
It becomes
It's a bit hysterical.
It's almost too much blood. Like it almost becomes comical.
Yeah,
because
it's
it's
like
so much
Quentin
blood.
Tarantino movie.
It is, yeah, but yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If someone's literally bathing in blood,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yes. Yeah. But on the other hand, caving, Joe, here's all I know about it, that I would never do it.
Yeah. It's
That's
a
what
big
we
fear of
know.
yours.
Well, it's just something that I do not, for the life of me, understand the appeal of.
Well, Chris,
Like, I can understand, like, the concept of, like, it's a sport, right? Like any other, like, you set yourself a challenge, you attain it, it feels good. But the risk so far, like, for me at least, the risk so far outweighs the reward that I can't imagine wanting to do it.
yeah, I can imagine jumping out of a plane. I can imagine doing a bungee jump.
Yeah.
I can imagine these things that seem like insanely dangerous. I would do those 1,000 times
Before you went potholing.
Yeah, if the odds of dying in a skydiving accident are like 150 to 1. Obviously,
Yeah.
they're not. They're much longer than that. but
yeah.
I would skydive 151 times
Yeah.
sooner than like go in a cave.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for that reason, I googled why caving,
Yeah.
and this is what I got from HowStuffWorks.com.
Okay.
For enthusiasts, caving carries the lure of the unknown.
Okay.
That's not a lure. For me. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a small group, and usually with a trained guide, you will enter a labyrinthine world of narrow pathways and tight crevices, lit only by the yellow glow of your headlamp.
Like, this is just describing a nightmare.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly,
this
yeah.
is literally just describing the anti-fun.
Depending on the cave, you may have to wade through waist-high water or scale up rocky walls. If you're lucky, you'll emerge in a large underground chamber
Yeah.
filled with dangling stalactites and adorned with colourful, intricate calcite deposits. Half the fun is getting back out.
Great. Well, if you're unlucky,
Yeah.
I've got some stories to tell you later.
Yeah,
So
about
look
why you're
forward to
scared.
them.
Right. We should probably put like a thing like a trigger warning if people have
Yeah.
like,
Claustrophobia.
we didn't do this last week with the nuclear war.
Yeah.
And it got dark. It
Yeah,
got dark
did,
quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to get dark at the end of this
yeah.
about like why Chris is scared of caving.
Yeah. So what's the format? We're as with last week, we're going to do a how to survive each for the descent. Then we're just going to talk about caving and phobia of caving.
Yes,
and claustrophobia.
So
Yes.
I haven't got much on how to survive this, and I've got
Yeah.
one big idea.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So again, I haven't been caving, and it seems that the plot of the movie is basically railroaded.
Okay.
Do you know
Like
what I mean?
you get stuck in a cave.
And you find the only way you can to get
Right.
out, but you get attacked by monsters, and you either get out or you don't.
Sure.
But I went on Seeker.com,
Okay.
that's to say someone who seeks, and they had 5 tips for anyone who goes spelunking,
Right.
which is a similar thing.
Spelunking is like a sort of extreme form of caving, right?
Yeah, but I think it's similar to when they're like crawling through the really, really tight gaps.
Yeah. Like, just as an aside,
Mm.
those sorts of things, if you think that they were like naturally formed,
Yeah.
there's something like oddly terrifying about that, I think.
Yeah.
Like a tunnel that is just like only by chance just big enough for you to squeeze through, that is formed naturally over thousands of years, millions of years. And there you are trying to like crawl through it, not knowing what's on the other side.
You couldn't pay me £1 million to
Yeah,
do it.
exactly,
It's,
yeah.
it's mental. Seeker.com says the 5 tips for spelunking. Staying safe.
Yeah.
Number 1, there's strength in numbers.
Right.
Now,
Not if you're going all trying to get through the same tunnel at the same time.
yeah, exactly. Or if one of you falls and breaks a leg.
Yeah. Although that
Does help.
Yeah, if
to
you've
have
got
friends,
numbers.
Yeah. So yeah, they've got the good numbers.
I thought,
That's a check. That's
But
a
would
check.
would they have been more likely to survive if there was 60 of them? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Go overpower the weird things, monsters, crawlers,
exactly.
creepy crawlers.
Right.
Number 2, know your limits.
Okay.
Now that requires informed consent, doesn't it?
Yeah, they don't know their limits, do
Yeah.
they? Because they reach them and exceed them.
Yeah. If at the beginning, before they dropped into that big hole,
Yeah.
Juno had gone, right, everyone, just to check, you've got your caving badges. Yep. Yes.
Have you got your blind monster fighting badges?
Yeah. Okay, you haven't. We better turn back.
Yeah.
And number 3, have the right gear.
Mm.
They appear to have what they need, except for when it goes wrong, because they use stuff that isn't theirs. When they
Yeah.
use the wrong gear, it goes wrong.
Yeah.
Fair point. Number 4, stay warm.
Right.
There's nothing to indicate that they were either cold or warm.
No,
So-
they're all wearing sort of vests and stuff, aren't they?
yeah, exactly. Number 5, don't drown.
Yeah. That's
It's
good.
always good advice.
Textbook advice.
Yeah. That's also, I mean, number 5 there, don't drown.
Mm.
Also crosses over to when having a bath, when in the shower, when walking down the road.
Well, it's actually remarkably links perfectly into my how to survive idea, that advice not to drown. Because I thought that if they transposed some well-known rules from another physical activity that a lot of people take part in. They would have done a much better job at surviving.
Yeah.
Do you have any guesses as to what that activity is?
Well, you said, I mean, it's related to don't drown, so I'm guessing it's diving.
It's very similar. It's swimming. So obey swimming pool rules.
Right.
So no running. It's dangerous. Holly does that, and she falls down a hole.
Yeah.
No petting. That's distracting, isn't it? And also, Juno essentially gets in trouble because she was petting Sarah's husband.
Oblique, but okay. I'll give it.
No diving.
Yeah.
That's dangerous. That would be dangerous.
Yeah.
There's limited water and it looks very shallow.
Yeah. And limited space to do so.
Yeah. On a similar note, no bombing.
Yeah.
Similarly, very dangerous.
Yeah. Bombing in the jumping into water sense, and
Yes.
also the explosives.
Also, yeah, exactly. Yeah. No pushing, because unity within the group is key.
Yeah.
I think.
As long as you're pushing in the same direction metaphorically,
Yes,
and not pushing each other.
That's fine. But I think adversarial pushing is not needed or wanted.
Yeah.
No inflatables.
Okay.
Because it's very tight down there, isn't it? The last thing you want is a rubber ring while you're trying to crawl
and if
through.
If you end up blowing up a lilo,
Yeah.
you're going to lose some of that essential breath.
Yeah, exactly. It's limited oxygen and also quite loud, aren't they, when they're sort of rubbing against things? So it's going to generate noise. Can't apply to all the rules though, Joe. So please do take food and drink, because you're going to need them.
Yeah.
You're going to need them for your energy. And rough play is allowed within the context of fighting off blind monsters.
Is that play at that point?
Well, you should find the joy in anything you can in life.
Yeah. Roughhousing.
Yeah.
Not horseplay though.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that is, I think basically if they obeyed those swimming pool rules, like you would find down your local community centre, they'd have done a much better job of surviving.
What about spitting?
Well, it wouldn't help, would it?
What about if you've got a verruca? Would you be required to wear a rubber sock?
Well, they're all wearing socks anyway. I mean, rubber socks are generally to stop it being communicated. So, yeah. That wouldn't be an issue.
No.
Does not apply.
Should you listen to the lifeguard?
If I tell you what, if there was one, he'd probably know the ins and outs of the cave. So that could only help.
Fair point. Should you shower before entering?
I mean, it's a good idea generally to shower. So hygiene purposes, why not?
Should you shower when leaving?
I think you would want to.
Yeah.
It's foolproof, Joe. I don't know why you're trying to pick holes in it.
I'm just being rigorous. So, Chris, with all that said, I agree. Like, taking swimming pool rules to most places would be a good idea. Maybe we could try that every week.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like Terminator 2 last week.
Yeah.
Running,
no pushing, no diving, no bombing, no inflatables.
Most things are like running, jumping, leaping, bombing. All good things.
They do quite a bit of bombing in Terminator 2.
Yeah. Not many inflatables.
Yeah.
Except the inflated ego of Arnold Schwarzenegger after being in this film.
Excellent.
That was rubbish, wasn't it? Really. So the descent. Let's get down to it. So we've had fun.
Yeah.
Now let's get really macabre, morbid, and harsh realities of life. Now we chose Terminator 2 last week because it's my fear. My fear is of nuclear war, which doesn't actually happen in the film, other than in like Sarah's imaginings,
dreams. Yeah.
Spoilers. Sorry. They stop the bombs.
Yeah.
Now this film we chose, or you chose, I should say, because it's your fear, your biggest fear, which is ostensibly being trapped in a cave underground.
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily a cave specifically, but it's like claustrophobia, being trapped, tight spaces, that sort of thing. And I'm not like claustrophobic to the point where I can't go to a concert or stand on the tube. Or do you know what I mean?
I mean, you do insist on recording this podcast in an open field. We're in Richmond Park right now.
Yeah, this is a bit close quarters.
Yeah.
No, but like it's more that sensation, like the idea of the realization that you're trapped, that you're stuck, and it's like the sort of with caving especially, it's like how unforgiving nature is, and like how unfit for you the location is.
Right.
Because like caves aren't meant to be explored. They're not like, you know, a thing that was engineered for people to explore.
No, exactly. Yeah.
It's a random natural occurrence that you're like trying to like writhe your way through.
So climbing a tree,
Yeah.
I can see the appeal in that, because like we're built for climbing.
Right.
We're not built for wriggling through tight rocks in close quarters.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yes. And I think it's also like the if you were to get into trouble, the sort of impossibility or the implausibility of you being rescued. Because if you're down in a cave, like that's it, isn't it? Like there's no way that you're getting out.
Yeah, if you're far down, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like a really bleak situation. And also I think it's been exacerbated by reading sort of like caving horror stories.
Yes. By horror stories, you mean like real situations in like nightmare situations?
Yeah, like so the sort of thing where someone would go, oh, yeah, it's tragic, but at least he died doing what he loved.
Yeah.
Which is nonsense, because no one loves being trapped upside down with fluid in your lungs.
He loved not knowing which way was up or down.
Yeah.
And like
in darkness,
crushed
alone.
between two rocks.
Yeah. So I've selected a few.
This isn't the sound insensitive. If anyone listening has been affected by a caving disaster,
I mean, surely no one would object to these stories being used as warnings, which is essentially what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because
last week I told you about Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah,
and that wasn't in an offensive way.
No,
we're stepping away from the comedy aspects.
Yeah, this is genuinely
horror,
troubling. Yeah. So the one that you and I know, because we shared it with one another, is that of John Jones.
Yeah.
Who these are the facts. He died upside down in a gap that was 10 inches by 18 inches, slowly suffocating, and they couldn't get him out as the rescue ropes snapped as they were drawing him out, and he fell even further down. And what was happening was that he was trying to climb down a very small tunnel that was sort of going vertically down, and became wedged, basically.
Upside down?
Yeah, upside down. So head down, feet up. And they couldn't pull him out. And then when they finally managed to get ropes around him and try and pull him out, the rope snapped and he fell even further down. And it got to the point where they couldn't actually get him out without breaking both of his legs.
Which would kill him with shock.
Yeah, exactly. Like, as in, not just a little break, like cutting his legs off, basically.
Yeah.
And so he ended up, that's where he still is.
Yeah.
So basically they
to put a fine point on it.
Yeah, he's still there. He's still there. They still can't get his body out.
Yeah.
And they sealed the cave up with concrete to stop anyone else going in there ever. That's so it's unretrievable.
Yeah. That's not what you want to happen.
No.
When you go out for a jolly.
Yeah. Like to say, oh, we couldn't retrieve you without killing you, but then to say we can't retrieve you even if you're dead. That is is certainly bleak.
There's some permanence to that.
Yeah. So the name was John Jones. You can Google it. It's pretty harrowing.
John with an H, not O-N. I think John Jones is the UFC fighter.
Right.
Not to be confused.
No, it's John. Yeah. The second one is from the UK. Schoolboy Joe Lister drowned in a cave in Yorkshire in 2010 when he was unable to get up a 12-metre long crawl tunnel, which is only 1 metre high, when conditions inside the cave changed, and the cave that he and his classmates and his teachers were in began filling with water because of adverse weather. So the cave that they were in began filling with water. There were about, I think, a dozen school children down there with 3 teachers, and all but Joe Lister got out, basically.
Why didn't he get out? Was it just a matter of timing?
Yeah, it was. I think it was unfortunate. One teacher nearly drowned himself trying to save the boy. Yeah, so he died as well. So being underground in the dark and it begins filling with water, and you have to crawl back through a tunnel that's a meter high that is filling with water. That is also
Again, like, you couldn't pay me £1 million to go.
no.
Yeah.
Then there's the Mossdale Caverns tragedy in 1967, where 6 people died when Mossdale Cavern filled with water, again, from the Mossdale Beck River, flooding it to the extent that the rescue teams couldn't get in until the next day. 5 of the 6 bodies were found together, and the 6th was found elsewhere, implying that he maybe survived longer, maybe in an air pocket or something, having the knowledge that his 5 friends had drowned underground in the dark. The entrance to the cave was concreted up after they retrieved the bodies to stop anyone else ever going in there. So I think also the reason that these all...
This just sounded like an episode of Lore.
Yeah.
The podcast about the spooky stories.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, they are spooky, but they are also real.
They're spooky,
It's not-
but that's, with Lore often is real as well. It's just like, this is real horror. We've traversed
But that's what I mean. It's like nature doesn't care. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not. It's unsympathetic, unfeeling.
If we were to bring it back to the beginning of the episode, this is why I find the first half of the movie, when they're just trapped cavers, to be more scary than monsters.
Yeah.
Because if in these stories you'd been like, and then a monster attacked, I'd be like, well, that's not true.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so I think the reason that these stories affect me in particular is because when I was young, I have it's like quite a strong memory, and it's something the significance of which is only apparent to me in retrospect, which I think is probably the case with a lot of like childhood stories.
Yeah.
So me and my family and some family friends were staying in a sort of villa place in Spain, and there was a swimming pool which was sort of Mickey Mouse shaped, and it was shared between it was a big villa, like apartments essentially, and shared
This is in
between
France, you said?
Spain. And it's the swimming pool was sort of Mickey Mouse head shaped, right? So it was like 3 circles, 2 smaller size, and the smaller size ones, I think one was like a kid's pool, and one was more of like not exactly a jacuzzi, but a sort of like seated, shallower bit. Hopefully, it would trap some heat, I guess. And separating that and the main swimming pool was a like sort of like a wall that ran across, the circular perimeter of the larger circle, maybe like a couple of inches under the water. So that's where the surface of the wall was. But it was it had gaps in the wall, like a bridge. There was like support struts, right? And I was quite young. I must have been like 11 or 12 or something. And I was quite a small child as well. And I, for whatever reason, took to swimming through the gaps of that underwater, gaps between the sort of things in this wall.
Pillars.
Yeah. Swimming between the pillars underwater, between the pool and the shallower pool, or vice versa. And the gap was so small that I had to go diagonally, and like the wall was like pressing against my shoulders as I swam through. And this was underwater. This was like, 6 inches underwater, let's say, or like a foot underwater.
But underwater.
Yeah,
fully submerged.
Fully submerged. Yeah. And I remember doing this, and then like parents saying, "Don't do that. Like, obviously, don't do that. Yeah. That's really not a good thing." And then I remember also doing it like when I was on my own in the pool. And like, this is going to make my parents sound really negligent. I don't imagine that I was alone in the pool. There was probably, but like without the knowledge, like I continued to do it without my parents being there.
without supervision.
Yeah. And so, just that so easily could have, you could so easily get trapped in there and just drown because you were stuck, right?
Yeah.
Because that,
Yeah.
and thinking
You
of
get
that,
the angle wrong slightly.
yeah, or you just, a million things could happen, right? And thinking of that now makes my blood run cold to imagine that I was doing that. But
I
that's
thought so. You didn't get stuck.
no, so I didn't get stuck. Like,
What was that? How's that scary? If you didn't get stuck.
because it was effort to get through the thing. It wasn't
Right.
like a
Swing through a gap.
no. It was like
You had to pull
squeezing.
yourself along.
Yeah,
Right.
like pull yourself through and squeeze through this gap, right? And as a kid, you just it's just a thing to do. It's just fun.
Exactly. I mean, we used to climb trees,
Right.
to the fucking top of an oak tree.
Yeah,
Like, I think nothing of it.
yeah.
And we're doing this with you. You couldn't pay me £1,000 to do that now.
Yeah. So exactly. So you couldn't pay me £1,000 to swim through a gap that was the same width as my shoulders now,
Yeah.
because it would be terrifying. But the memory of that somehow takes on its own really frightening color. And I know, saying, "Oh, I didn't get stuck," makes it seem like it wasn't
Yeah.
a risk. But it really was. If I'd been, half an inch wider, I would have got stuck. If I'd had a big breakfast, do you know what I mean? It was that fine a thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, to tie it back to the trees again. I'm going to keep saying we climb trees. We did used to climb trees together.
Yeah.
Because we've been friends since we were kids.
since childhood,
Yeah. And I distinctly remember climbing trees and branches snapping off under your feet, high up as well.
Yeah.
And you'd just be like, huh?
Yeah.
At least I didn't fall. And you'd move on. But imagine falling from a fucking oak tree.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have, you wouldn't know about
it's
it.
equivalent to jumping off a 4-story building or something, isn't it? Yeah.
And we were doing that all the time. This thing is, we're the reason we have a podcast called How to Survive, we wouldn't have had this with kids. You would have been like, yeah, just fucking walk through the
Just
gunfire.
climb out the tree.
Yeah. Just don't worry about it. These things take care of themselves.
Yeah, and it's almost like, looking back at it now, it's almost like a borderline feeling of shame for doing it. Imagine if you're a parent and you find your kid
Lodged.
yeah. It's a harrowing thought, and I think that's why it freaks me out. And I think that to link it back to the caving thing and the idea of getting stuck, I think what freaks me out is the idea of knowing that you're going to die and that it's your fault.
Preventable.
You have done something stupid to make this happen, right? So you've tried to swim through that gap just for a laugh, and now you're stuck and you can't get out. And this is it. This is how you drown. And you've climbed a tree and you're falling, and you're you have that time to go.
I only have myself to blame.
Yeah. And the inability of being able to do anything about it. So when they're in the descent, in the descent, there is a brief shot where they are, spelunking through a water-filled tunnel under a rock. It's just the idea of getting stuck somewhere like that, and just thinking,
slowly thinking,
my foolish hobby has led me to this point.
In the defense of the characters in the descent, they were led there.
Yeah, but then
accidentally.
No, yeah.
Well,
but
they went there.
They weren't
after.
led into caving. They enjoy caving. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why the only pastimes we have involve sitting in an office chair, talking into a microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's some sobering stories there, Chris.
Yeah. Thanks very much for listening.
Yeah. Next week, no more personal fears.
Yeah.
A little bit too real.
So what are we doing for episode 96?
96, Chris. We're going back to 96 for the first in our weather season on How to Survive.
Yeah.
Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Weather season. So 1996 saw the release of Twister, which is a movie about a tornado.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But we haven't fought against the weather yet here on How to Survive. Following that, the second weather movie will be The Mist, which is
a Frank Darabont, The Mist.
Yeah. Which how would you describe that in a bleak sense? Paranormal?
Bleak.
A bleak film.
Yes.
About the mist.
Yes. Look forward to that.
Yeah, that's available on Amazon Prime. I don't know if Twister's on Netflix or Amazon Prime, but I don't expect it will be too much to pick up from anywhere.
No, they'll be giving it away.
Yeah, any good charity shop will have it on VHS.
Yeah.
Do watch that. Do watch The Mist, and we'll be back next week with more thrilling chat. If you've had any thoughts on how you'd survive any of the movies we've covered, or if you've got any thoughts on which franchise we should be covering after Friday the 13th wraps up in a few months' time, do let us know. HowToSurviveShow@gmail.com or on Twitter @HowToSurvivePod. Remember to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever you listen to your podcasts on. 5 stars, of course, is the language of love, and it is the only reviews we respond to. We've been locked in there, Chris, for a while, haven't we? We haven't got any new 5-star reviews.
Yeah, we need freshening up.
Yeah. So if you leave us a 5-star review this week, we will reward you by putting out the episode next week. Otherwise, there will be no content.
Yeah.
And you can...
Do you want to run that risk? Only you can make the difference.
Otherwise, you'd have to just listen to music on your commute, and who wants that?
Yeah.
Frankly. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again soon. Hold on, I've got a joke. Right. Can you say, but ostensibly it's being trapped and claustrophobic.
But yeah, essentially it's being trapped and claustrophobic.
Is that why you haven't proposed to your girlfriend yet?
Do you want to do the plot recap or?
Yeah. Because you said pale, like blind, and I was gonna go like double down on it and say like that's you describing your girlfriend.
Right. Oh, I see. I thought you meant being trapped and
claustrophobic. Yeah, that's no, both.
Right.
Both.
It's very clever. Yeah.
It's a 2-pronged attack on you.
Thanks. On my girlfriend.
Well, no, on you. I mean,
on my girlfriend who just this week was in hospital.
Yeah.
Because she was run over by a car.
That's true.
And this is the week that you choose to mock her. I mean, that's.
Is she okay?
That seems distasteful.
Is she injured?
That seems distasteful.
Is she injured?
Well, it's not for me to say.
Is she injured?
It's not for me to say on a
podcast.
It is for you to. It's not for me to say on a podcast.
I'm asking the questions.
I don't want to reveal the medical history of my girlfriend, the love of my life, who you have so sinisterly, emotionally abused on this podcast by proxy.
Was she injured?
I don't want to divulge the private medical details of my girlfriend. You can put all this at the end, by the way. Don't have this included.